Many artists live in constant states of reaction. Either we're frantically drowning in work during really busy seasons, or we're spiraling with anxiety during our slower months. We treat these ups and downs as if they're like an unpredictable force of nature completely beyond our control. But what if I told you these seasonal rhythms aren't random at all? What if understanding these patterns could actually transform how you experience your entire creative business? Hi there, my name is Kay, and I am the host and founder of The Artist's Guide to Business, as well as the artist behind K Potter Fine Art. And I want to welcome you to this week's episode. So join me as we open up our imaginary guidebook and dive into today's main topic, which is seasonal rhythms, understanding the natural cycles of your art business. So, today I'm going to share with you a different way of thinking about the ebbs and flows in your business. Rather than seeing them as problems to solve, I want to help you recognize them as patterns to understand and then actually leverage. So, we'll explore the psychological impact of these cycles, how to develop resilience through them, and how shifting your perspective can actually transform your relationship with your art business throughout the entire year. Because here's the reality, like that anxiety that you feel during the slow months, as well as the overwhelm you'll feel during really busy times, they're not really like, it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong or that there's something wrong with your business. Like that is a natural response to the rhythm of a creative business. But how you think about these patterns can make the difference between a long term, sustainable, enjoyable art practice versus one that leaves you like constantly stressed out and uncertain. Okay, so think about it. Like, what would it mean for you and your well being if you could approach slow seasons with confidence instead of panic? Like, what if you could experience busy periods with intentionality and high energy rather than just feeling straight up chaos? And what would change in your creative practice if you moved from perpetual reaction, reacting constantly to actually like thoughtful anticipation and planning it out? But of course, it's not as simple as just following someone else's calendar or their system, because effective, like seasonal thinking really requires understanding of your own unique patterns and developing your way to approach them and react to them. And it also depends on your business and where you live. But there's some principles and some overarching ideas that we can talk about today. So let's dig in. And then by the end of this episode, I'm fairly confident that you'll have a new framework for thinking about the natural rhythms in your art business. Also, you guys make sure you listen to the end so you can get your weekly single step and point of interest, the two segments to help you take action in your business this week. Small things that you can do to move your business forward every week. Okay? All right. So let's open our imaginary guidebook and let's dive in. First, let's talk about the psychology of seasonal patterns in creative businesses. Almost every business, no matter what industry, almost every small business experiences natural cycles of higher and lower activity. But creative businesses often feel these fluctuations really intensely. There's something particularly vulnerable about the feast or famine cycle when your income is directly tied to your creative output. It's kind of funny, but like, it's almost like even if you've been paid before, you always like when you're not currently busy, you're like, I'll never see that money again. I'll never see a payment again. Right. So during busy seasons, there's like a peculiar kind of stress that comes in addition. It like comes from abundance or having like multiple commissions or projects simultaneously, which can feel validating and exciting, but also overwhelming. You get financial relief of having all this work, but then you also get all this pressure to meet deadlines, maintain quality, probably answer a lot of different clients, or, just kind of like, there's a lot going on when you're doing multiple projects at once. Many artists experience what I call like the creative bottleneck stress. So, this is where the ideas and the execution capacity, like their ability to actually like do the things, it's really hard for them to keep pace or like to keep up with all the demand. But then, on the other hand, the slow seasons arrive and they bring with them a fully different psychological experience. The silence of an empty inbox can be deafening after months of constant client communication. And this is when the most insidious thoughts usually creep in. Maybe no one like wants my art anymore. What if I never get another commission? Was the busy period I just went through, was it pure luck? Like, these mental patterns are pretty uncomfortable. And not only are they just uncomfortable, but they actually will impact your creative capacity and then your business decision making. I can relate to this. So, the anxiety of slow periods can often lead you to do rash underpricing, or overcommitting when opportunities do arrive. They can even create creative paralysis. So, understanding the psychological landscape of all of this is really your first step towards working with your seasonal patterns of your business rather than being controlled and constantly moved around them. Kind of like if you're a ship and you don't understand the ocean at all, when the waves come, it feels random and it feels like it just pushes you one way or the other off course. But if you step back, which is what we're doing in the episode today, and you get a real understanding of the landscape or the seascape, and you understand how this stuff impacts you, you can be more intentional about how much those waves move you around. And you can keep moving in an intentional direction instead of just getting pushed fully off course. What I've noticed through my own experience and working with a few other artists is that these seasonal rhythms typically follow like a very recognizable pattern, even if the specific timing varies by each artist. So, for many artists, regardless of their medium, there's this gift giving driven cycle, right? I mean, it's just retail. Holiday seasons, particularly November through December, can really drive commission requests and sales for work that can be given as gifts. Mother's Day, Father's Day, maybe graduation season, depending, a little bit here and there. They can create smaller, noticeable bumps, in certain types of art. But yeah, there's also like the life celebration cycle. So, like wedding season, people are buying art as gifts, or the couple is celebrating their wedding with art. There's live wedding painting or venue illustrations, portraits, things like that. Baby showers, births create opportunities for kind of like memorabilia or commemorative art. And then there's like, this is the one that is kind of the most steady or can be any season, is that home improvement cycle. It doesn't really happen too much in winter, but in summer, people start getting really excited about building out their house, changing up rooms, decorating, things like that. So that's when they'll be purchasing art for their spaces, during a spring refresh. Or also, you guys, like when people are having babies, they'll have a nesting period. And that's when they'll get really excited about making their home beautiful, and family oriented. And then there's this other one to know about, and it's the financial cycle, and it impacts luxury purchases or bigger, higher price point art. The tax refund season, when people get their taxes back, if they are feeling like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, and I have a little bit of a boost, anything like that, they will, this is at least in the US, it's in April, they might want to spend some of that extra money on art. I've also noticed that people spend money on art when they get an inheritance. It's often like I'm going to use this inheritance smart and put it away or whatever, pay off debt and things. But a lot of times they'll use a little portion of it to buy something really nice for themselves that then reminds them of the person they just lost. So, I mean, it's just really interesting that's not seasonal either. But just to give you an idea, like these are kind of things that start impacting how people buy art and why they might buy art. And then I think there's also in my business, I've really noticed it. There is a very slow season right after the holidays. So January into February and maybe into March, people are fatigued from purchasing items. At that time, they're kind of excited about courses or anything that's sort of like self development or, gives them an experience. But as far as like physical products, unless it's related to, I guess, weight loss, I don't know, physical products like art, I think I've noticed that there is fatigue around that. But the only way you can really understand or know about this is to think about it in your own business, right? Like, who knows, maybe your art is perfect for people with New Year's resolutions, in which case January would be a very busy season for you. So none of this is necessarily like cut and dry, black and white, but just kind of getting you thinking about it. You might recognize some of these patterns or notice entirely different ones, again, specific to your niche. The key, though, so you don't want to follow somebody else's calendar, but you want to recognize your own business's particular rhythm. All right, so now let's talk about developing resilience through all of this seasonal awareness. So one of the most challenging aspects of a creative business is honestly the emotional toll or unpredictability. But here's what I've learned after years in this field. What feels unpredictable at first eventually reveals itself as a cycle. So the first time you experience a January slump, it can and it might trigger panic. By the fifth January slump, you recognize it as a natural part of your business cycle. This perspective shift doesn't just happen overnight, it takes a long time, but it also takes intentionally developing seasonal resilience and just paying attention to it and creating the ability within yourself to maintain your creative confidence and your business vision through both feast and famine periods. So here's what seasonal resilience looks like in practice. So I want you to think about it. Like, when was the last time you had a really slow period in your business? What were you feeling? Like, what were you feeling? What were you thinking? What kind of decisions were you making? What was the context around it, right? Like, how did you experience it? Because I want you to think about that. And now I want to talk to you about what it looks like when you have more of that seasonal resilience and it looks, you trust, you have a sense of low level confidence and trust that the busy season is going to return because you've seen the pattern before, right? Like, I have had to tell my brain multiple times, like, it's coming. I promise you, the next project will arrive. It always does, So you kind of have to catch your brain and help it understand and trust that the future has opportunity. And then if you're not totally following the anxiety and the panic and the depression and all those thoughts, you can actually use that time for rejuvenation or skill development or building your business infrastructure and systems rather than just spiraling into doubt. So during busy seasons or during the opposite of that, you remember like the breathing room is coming, right? So that's the opposite. Like, if you're really busy, think about the last time you were really busy. Okay, so now take a minute and think about the last time that you were really busy in your business. Did you feel overwhelmed? Were you, working more hours than normal and maybe like a little bit stressed out? Did the house chores, not get done? Or just, think about your own experience of the last time you were really busy. And now, what we want to do with resilience is we want to remember during those busy times that breathing room is coming. So that helps you maintain your boundaries and prevent burnout because you can say, I just have to get through the next 2 months. I can make sure that am showing up every day really, intensely or really high energy, but I can also like put off, being having the house perfectly clean for this next month, right? Or I can put off certain things because at this point, I'm really focused on how busy my business is. And I know it'll slow down in 2 months. And that's when I can get to the yard work or whatever it might be. The artists who struggle most are often those who treat each slow season as like a total catastrophe and like an anomaly rather than a predictable phase. Some of the like things you might experience, or some of the symptoms, I should say, you take actions from a place of fear. So you slash your prices, you abandon your creative direction, you say yes to way too many things that you don't enjoy. And then on the flip side, if you don't recognize that busy season as temporary, then you might like expand too quickly or take on an unsustainable amount of commitments. Like you might hire someone before you're actually ready to, or you might neglect marketing and communicating or connecting with their collectors who they aren't necessarily doing projects or work for right away or right then. Just like full blown zero marketing effort. And that can be really problematic because when things slow down again, you need marketing then, and you're essentially starting over with a cold audience. So developing seasonal resilience means holding both of these realities kind of simultaneously. This idea that this too shall pass, whether it's a drought or whether it's like the full on deluge of work. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Let me just share something from my own experience that kind of shares this concept. So I've been doing pet portrait commissions long enough to know that January through March have typically been very slow months. Maybe there's a present here and there, but it's not a popular buying time. And in my first few years of business, these slow periods would absolutely trigger immense anxiety. As you guys know, my business has been tied to my ability to live since day one. I did have a safety net with my father in the first few years. I knew he wouldn't let me lose my housing. But beyond that, I didn't have some stack of money somewhere. I just like to throw that out there for you guys, just so you know. Like, so when I say that I was stressed out when pet portrait seasons all of a sudden stopped coming or orders stopped coming, I was anxious and I was stressed out, and I would start questioning everything about this path, about this journey, my pricing, my marketing, my worth as a human being, because of course our brains want to take it there. And then I started approaching those months, those slow months, completely differently. I would store up money so that I knew I could continue paying for my studio. I would know they're coming, so I would actually plan some really fun, like art classes that I would take, or skill building, missions that I would go on, where I'm going to paint this many things in this many days or whatever. And it's going to be lovely because I don't have to do work for other people right now. And then also I found a thing that fit really well with that seasonality. I found sip and paints were really popular in those months. So I used them to fill that revenue gap, right? Like it's a season that was totally seasonal as well, because people don't want to do those in the summer months where I live. They want to be outside. And so that's also a seasonal thing, right? So I got to a place where the two of them were working together. And I would also just teach some fun workshops and classes and stuff. So the work really didn't change, but the relationship to my seasonal pattern did. I even went so far as to make it an intentional practice in my business to not really promote pet portraits until late summer into the fall, and just try to combine them all or compress them all down into that holiday season, because it was the most popular time anyway. It makes the most sense for a lot of people who are buying them as gifts. And so I just, kind of intentionally followed the pattern of that seasonality. Instead of fighting it, I embraced it and made it work better for me. Does that make sense? So it's kind of cool. Like you can play with that too and make your life better if you just kind of, instead of fighting every wave, you go with the flow. Okay. So that's not to say you can't sell pet portraits all year round, because you absolutely can. That's just how I handled it. This brings me to an important insight too about that anticipation versus the reaction. How I said, like, knowing there's a fundamental difference between businesses that merely react to everything that goes on around them, like seasonal changes, and those that anticipate and plan for them. Reactive businesses are constantly caught off guard, always scrambling to adjust, missing opportunities, being like, oh gosh, here we are. Whereas anticipatory businesses use their understanding of the cycles that they've seen to make really strategic decisions with a long view. So that anticipatory, or that, long view look, it means making decisions in each season that set up the success for the next. So again, during really busy periods, You're thinking, how do I capture information, testimonials, connections? How do I kind of grab everything from this time that I can that will help me during quieter times? When you have 15 clients that you're working with or something like that, you're not thinking like, oh, I've got to make sure I keep their email addresses in a clear document. You're not thinking that way. You're thinking like, I got to get this done and I got to ship it. But if you maintain that sort of farming of things to help you throughout the whole year of your business, then you'll collect the important things. You won't miss out on the opportunity to get things that will help you build your business and have more sales or revenue in those slower times. And then also, like during the slower periods, if you're anticipating those busy seasons and you know they're coming, you can plan for them by getting templates ready, or you can plan for them by ordering enough materials to cover your bases for when you get 15 pet portrait commissions, or when you know you'll be teaching 30 students a month for the next 4 months, or whatever it might be. You can kind of batch process anything to get ready for those busy seasons, right? It's cool. It's kind of fun. And it's about developing like that bigger, more expansive view of your business, your timeline, and making decisions from that perspective. So just take a second, you guys, and I want you to think about the last time that you felt really busy in your business. You can think about what season was it, or what was going on around why that was so busy. And then I want you to think like, what is one thing that could have really helped me out? Like, what's one thing I could have done before I was in the busy season that would have made it easier? Would it have been organizing my shipping station? Like something as simple as a giant tape roller gun, like something that minor can make a huge difference when you're super busy. So always paying attention to like, okay, it's going to get really busy here. I'm going to have 15 pet portrait commissions or something like that. And I just want to make sure I have all my shipping materials ready to roll so I don't have to do last minute runs down to the store, So yeah, start thinking like in your experience, what was one thing, right? And then one of the biggest mistakes that we all make, and I see artists make and other business owners make, is like I mentioned, completely abandoning your marketing efforts during those busy periods. You're thinking, I'm already swamped with work, so I really don't need more visibility right now. Like I really don't want it, right? But the problem with this approach is that it really builds that boom and bust cycle that's more extreme than the natural seasonal variations. So like your seasonal variations already are up and down. And then if you stop marketing, they get even more, well, the down gets more extreme, honestly. I don't know about the other one. So when you go silent during those business periods, essentially you're losing that connection, that goodwill, that trust that you've built up, and you're going to have to completely restart it. Now, as someone, I know that there's at least one business of artists who I've met and talked to, and they're actually going to be interviewed on this podcast very soon. But well, I've done the interview, I just have to edit it. But they have a very well established business. It's ceramics. Been in business for over 50 years, and they can completely fall off the map in their off season. They don't have to do any marketing or anything, but that's because they have literally 50 years of customers and people following them who are really excited about what they make. So the second they just start posting on Facebook again or Instagram, everybody comes flocking. But it's kind of expected, right? So you can also kind of like, I don't know, if you build that kind of following. I think Bo Burnham does that, which I don't know much about him, but I did find that interesting. Like he'll disappear for a long time when he's creating something, and then it'll be all over the place for a short burst when he's ready to distribute it, and then he'll disappear again. But again, that is someone who's very established, and it takes years to get that level of establishment. So, until you feel really comfortable and confident with these shifts and these seasons, you want to maintain at least some sort of baseline visibility or connection. I think the easiest way is email marketing. I think it's not only the easiest, I think it is hands down the most effective. And you'll always hear me promote that. But, if you're really busy, you might be like, there's no way in my super busy season that I'm going to sit down and write a thoughtful email to my newsletter email list. Like, not a chance, Kay. Totally hear you. Completely get it. That is one of those things that you can prep in your slower seasons. You can batch write, like 5 or 6 emails that you're like, these can be sent at any time. It's about some project I made that I was excited about. It doesn't have to be current, or it can be a studio tour, or it can be anything. It can be a poem you wrote. Like, it can, whatever. And then you just have those on hand. You can even automate them. You can write them, put them into your email software, and schedule them to send out during those busy seasons so that you don't even have to think about it. That way too, on social media, you're not having to like respond to comments, but you can also on social media, you can pre-plan and schedule posts there too. So, that's kind of some things you can think about. Yeah. That's a lot to do too, right? It's a lot to do. So the slow seasons, when you start thinking of the business as a full year, those slow seasons are actually not that slow. They're just bigger on the back end than they are that forward client facing instant gratification or validation end. Does that make sense? You guys know I've been through all of this. So I know. But and think about it this way too. If you're in a really busy season next time and you're super overwhelmed, like every now and then just write a note in your phone about what would have made your life easier today, or what would have made your life easier this week. And then when it gets slow, go ahead and go back to those notes so that you can align the 2 seasons to work towards and work together. Lots of artists, so many of us, we fight against this seasonality. We try to force consistent production. We try to force consistent income throughout the year. We think that the natural ebbs and flows only happen to artists, but only happen to us individually. We think we need to set up like a print on demand shop or things like that will last all year round. Even those have seasonality too. So you need to know that this is like a natural part of any business. So don't, resisting it actually just creates unnecessary stress. Whereas if you just go with it and work with it, you can get into a flow and make the most of it. So think about that. Like, what if you did? What if you aligned your plans and your expectations with those natural cycles? How would you go about your year differently? What would things look like for you? What would each season bring that's rewarding to your creative business? Right? Like, I love it when I have like 10 pet portraits lined up in my studio that I'm working on. Like, I love being able to see them all. It's energizing and it's fun. And then I can batch photograph them all. I can batch ship them all. Like, that's energizing busy season stuff. But being completely overwhelmed and rushing out trying to find a canvas because I didn't order one and I didn't know I'd get this busy, that's not fun or energizing, right? And then also, you guys, I'm a huge fan. Those slow seasons, like, treat your artistic soul to some time. Give yourself time to explore, to wonder, to be the artist that you are, while also, doing some work for your business. Okay. So we're not just accepting this feast or famine. We're not just being like, yep, that's the nature of it all and it sucks. No, we're working with these natural cycles rather than fighting against them or crying about them. We're creating financial strategies, right? We're thinking, okay, I know it's going to be slow January through February and March. Like, I need to have money in the bank before those months start. And once I do, I feel real good when I'm going through those months. And then when March starts coming to an end, I'm like, oh, it's time. I got to get some income, but it's still like, it's having those plans in place means that in January, I can take art classes all month and it's fine. Also, it's like nice. Sometimes the flow of the seasonality of business also fits well with like your own energy levels. Like in January and February, I want to be cozy in my house. Like, I want to be making art. I want to be like in it, but in the summer months, I want to be outside. I want to be active. I want to be engaging people. So it's more busy. It's more fun. I don't know. So it can fit too with your own energy amounts. Yeah. And then also you get to say how much you do or don't do, like, so I'll open up my commissions for the holiday season and then I get them all done by the first weekend or first so that they can get shipped or delivered or whatever. But I make it very much intentional that I take 2 weeks off in December every year because by then I'm so exhausted. Without fail, I have overworked myself throughout the year. And so I got to a place, plus the holidays are hard for me. Both my parents are gone, blah, blah. So I have to take really good care of myself in the month of December. So I structure it that way. I structure it around it. My commissions are all finished up and shipped. If I get a late one and I feel the energy for it, I say yes. If I get a late one and I'm like, nope, I got to take these weeks off, I take the weeks off. You plan your time out to make everything like better and more enjoyable and intentional for you. Okay? So, yeah, I think again, I just want you guys, that's my experience, right? Like that is how I experience it. In Montana, we have very dramatic seasonal changes. Wherever you are, it might be very different. So here's some reflection you can do. I want you to take some time this week to consider, again, what's your business's natural rhythms? If you've been practicing your art professionally for at least a year, look back at your calendar, your sales records, your energy levels, and ask yourself, like, where were the peaks and valleys? What kind of patterns can I identify? And then think about what activities feel most aligned with different periods of this natural cycle. When are you most energized for creation? When do you naturally feel drawn to planning or reflection? When do you need to rest? Consider what you'd like to maintain even during your busiest periods, and then set yourself up to be able to maintain that. What aspects of your artistic practice or your life are non negotiable, regardless of how many commissions or projects you have or don't have? That's the other thing, right? Like, if you abandon all your projects in the slow season, like your personal art projects or your portfolio or whatever it might be, if you abandon it because you're so stressed out, that's not, you're missing out on a non-negotiable there. So identify, like, no, I want to make sure I'm always creating art at least 2 days a week or whatever, right? And then finally reflect on how you might use your slower periods more intentionally. So what kind of skills would you like to develop? What aspects of your business could use attention when you're not in that full production mode? Or what creative explorations call to you when your client work is minimal? Or what creative, lessons can you learn that'll make your work better and up level your skills? So there's no right answer. There's no single answer to these questions because it's so personal. But what matters is developing your awareness or your patterns and making intentional decisions about how you want to work with them. So I'll go ahead and we'll wrap up this main section by emphasizing again, seasonal thinking is not about controlling every aspect of your business or eliminating those natural ebbs and flows. It's about recognizing the patterns that already exist in your creative practice and then making peace with them. Not only making peace with them, but building into them. It's about moving from that resistance to that alignment. What actions in this season align with how this season is, right? From reaction to anticipation. All right. And when you understand and you work with your specific seasonal patterns, you will transform so much of that anxiety into a more natural rhythm that gives you confidence and supports you, supports your business, and most importantly, your creative well-being. Okay. All right. So now it is time for part of the show where I give you a couple of quick practical things to actually do in your business this week. So if you're new here, this portion of the show is quick, but we include it because we want you to always get practical, accessible, and easy to apply ideas from us. So the main topic may be a deep dive like we did just now, or like a bit theoretical. But then this section will give you the actual real life ideas that you can use today. They're usually pretty quick and small. Okay. So our first segment is the single step, where we share a small but meaningful action you can take this week to keep yourself moving forward down your path. Because in the artist's journey, small actions taken consistently build something powerful over time. So this week, your single step is to schedule 30 minutes to research one new art competition or exhibition opportunity in your community or maybe nationally that you might be interested in applying to or being involved with. A lot of us miss valuable opportunities simply because we just don't know they exist. So take 30 minutes, go to, what is it, like cafepress.com? I don't know, Google art opportunities, and you'll find it. And also look for options specifically that align with your medium, your style, maybe older pieces you have. Just make note of deadlines and consider if it's something that's worth pursuing. If it's not, then don't even worry about it. But it's just good to know what's out there anyway. And if you decide not to apply this time, at least you're aware of it. What's, 30 minutes, half hour, just get a context for what kind of things are happening in the art world around you. And then try it out. Remember, even small actions compound over time. You never know what you'll discover. Okay. And then our next segment is our point of interest. So this is the point of interest of the week. This is like a spot in your journey where you can pause and create a point of interest for your fans, your collectors, your audience. So I'll give you a quick prompt to inspire content you can share with your fans through your weekly email, your blog, social media, YouTube videos, vlogs, posts, however you communicate to them, like write them a handwritten letter, whatever it is, just so you can stay visible and engaged. Or you could use it to write emails that you'll use during your next busy season. Yeah. All right. So today's point of interest prompt is create a materials spotlight featuring your favorite brand of paint, clay, metal, or whatever medium you use, and share with your audience why you love it, how you discovered it, and maybe even demonstrate a cool way that you use it in your art that showcases your skills and your mastery around it. This kind of consistent content can be really popular because it gives your audience a neat glimpse into your professional knowledge and skill while being genuinely helpful for any other artists you might be, interacting with or sharing things with, whatever. So, last thoughts as we close out this week's episode. I hope this exploration of seasonal thinking has given you a new framework or at least a new understanding of the natural rhythms in your art business. Remember, the ups and the downs you experience aren't signs that something is wrong. They're perfectly natural, the cadence of creative work and business. When you recognize and you align with these patterns, you can move from constant reaction to more thoughtful anticipation. Also, you guys, if you are a pet portrait artist and you're looking for systems that help manage these practical aspects of your business, check out the complete pet portrait business system that I offer. It includes templates, workflows, designed specifically with seasonal fluctuations in mind. I have a series of, I think, 5 emails in there for when you open your commissions. So things like that, those tools, they're already made for you in the Pet Portrait Business System. And you can find it at www.theartistsguidetobusiness.com under the resources tab. So be sure to check that out. Last but not least, everyone, please make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode of The Artist's Guide to Business. You want to keep up on those points of interest and the single steps. And if you found today's content very valuable, I'd be so grateful if you would just take a moment to leave a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice. This feedback I cannot express enough. It really helps other artists discover this resource. So until next time, remember that the seasonal nature of your creative business isn't a problem to solve. It's a rhythm to understand and embrace. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.